All right, y'all, so Diddy has finally been arrested by the feds following this investigation that they've been working on for absolute months, if not years. All of that's going to become clear in the future, but we're about to get into exactly what we know so far.
Breaking news. The federal indictment against music icon Sean Diddy Combs has just been released. The bombshell charges against him, including racketeering and sex trafficking.
All right, so most of us already know that for the past year at least, Diddy has been wrapped up in lawsuit after lawsuit with some Epstein-level diabolical allegations behind them. And he keeps taking L's over and over and over again. But if you remember, just a few months ago, the feds simultaneously raided his house in LA and Miami, like at the same time, and they seized all of his electronics. They seized guns. They seized a lot of stuff that we didn't know about until right now. And we still have no idea the whole scope and reach of this thing, but even just the initial reports that are coming out right now are absolutely mind-boggling and disgusting. There's no other real way to put it. It's absolutely gross, the behaviors and the things that they found. All of this, like, this dude had the entire world in the palm of his hand. He could have had anything that he wanted, and he chose to be a deviant and a predator. And I cannot stress this part enough. It was not just Diddy. There are other forces at play here. There are other celebrities, other people behind the scenes, other people in power in this country who are engaging in this type of disgusting predatory behavior with Diddy, and he probably has video of all of them. So if they want to unravel this whole thing, arresting Diddy and pressuring him with the threat of charges that could put him into a federal prison for the rest of his life is a great way to get him to go against the other people that he knows about and bring this entire house of cards down. So we're gonna jump right into this because we got a lot of stuff to cover. Everybody ready? Let's go!
Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution.
Now, the initial breaking reports had a much longer list of charges. There was talk about narcotics trafficking, there was talk about arson, which makes me wonder, is this just the first set of indictments that are going to drop? Because they keep alluding to the fact that this is just the first set of things to come. Will these other charges be federal, or will they be state charges from the state of New York, the state of Florida, wherever these things transpired?
The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
You hear what the man said? 2008, homie. Basically what he's saying is that the feds jumped in the Wayback Machine and they've been gathering evidence for like over a decade.
As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice.
Okay, so maybe they're wrapping up the arson and some of these other charges into the racketeering charge, but arson itself should be a completely separate crime. And if you guys understand what the arson is, they're talking about blowing up Kid Cudi's car. Yeah, if you remember correctly, Cassie revealed that Diddy had a plot to blow up Kid Cudi's car in revenge for Kid Cudi talking to Cassie while her and Diddy were broken up. And then Kid Cudi came out and confirmed that somebody actually blew his shit up.
The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines.
Now, this is a really important distinction that he's making here with these indictments, because as the indictment reads, he is charged with human sex trafficking by force. Now, sex trafficking federal charges by themselves are a serious deal, but when you add the aggravating circumstances of by force or coercion or extortion, that adds major time. Like, he could get a life sentence for that charge alone in a major federal prison, like a violent one. We're not talking about him going to a little camp. We're talking about him going to a big-ass USP. This is also him establishing part of his argument for the transporting across state lines for the purposes of prostitution. And what he was doing is he was swooping up dudes to come and get ran through or run through chicks or get up inside of him for the purposes of these freak-offs. And the freak-offs are going to be a major part of this trial. They are a major part of this indictment. So we're going to get tons of evidence, and we're going to go into what he says about that right now.
Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them.
Now look, you can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want, but this is just exactly like the type of stuff that was going on with Epstein, and part of the reason that we never got the Epstein list of all of his clients. Epstein was recording high-profile clients doing terrible illegal things with kids. Diddy was doing the same thing, but like it seems like most of them were adults. The feds got into Epstein's whole shit, and they got all of those tapes, and they were able to scrub and delete all of that stuff, and now we haven't heard nothing about it. They just did the same thing with Diddy, is what I feel like. Like, that's what I think is going on here. I think that they hit the LA home and the Florida home down in Miami at the same exact time so that they could get the evidence that was against these high-profile people so that these people could be protected and that they could give Diddy up, because it's been known for years that Diddy was a federal informant and that he was playing ball, but I think that he stepped on the wrong toes and they are throwing him to the wolves now. And while I am absolutely certain that this arrest of Diddy is not going to be the last arrest that we see from this, I guarantee you there are people that they are working to protect in this whole situation throughout this whole entire indictment. And if Diddy doesn't play ball the way that they want him to play ball, he will probably be found exactly the way that Epstein was found.
The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB.
Days at a time? You weirdos really ain't got nothing better to do with your life than hang out for days at a time, putting stuff up your nose and buggering each other up the butthole? Ugh.
Which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant.
Now, this is one of the most common tools that people who are human traffickers use to manipulate, force, and extort their human trafficking victims into doing what they want. They either get them strung out, they keep them high, so they're compliant, and they do whatever is required of them. And then afterwards, they feel ashamed. They feel confused. They were in a drug stupor the entire time, so they're not even sure exactly what may or may not have happened to them, so they're less likely to come forward.
When Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs.
And they're definitely not going to have much trouble proving that in court due to that video coming out of what Diddy did to Cassie in that hotel.
Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media.
So there's different types of sex workers out there. There's ones that are willing participants and they're doing their own thing. And then there's ones that are run by organizations and or pimps. And what this dude was doing is what we called the absolute worst. We called it guerrilla pimping, where you're just like swooping people up, beating the shit out of them, forcing them to do sexual shit that they don't want to do by physical violence and force. These are the worst of the worst types of people on the streets.
He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims.
He said the quiet part out loud there. I don't know if you guys caught that, but yo, I'm not as concerned about the videos when it comes to the victims, even though that's terrible and atrocious. I'm concerned about the perpetrators in those videos. This right here is the Epstein of rap.
The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses.
And that part right there might be what makes this even worse than the Epstein case. I have never heard anything in the Epstein case about firearms being used, this violent force type of shit being used. This is some H&L stuff right here, guys. This is a whole nother level. Also, if you noticed, he said Combs and others. So where are the others? Nobody else has been arrested that I'm aware of except for his mule. Remember that Brendan dude, the little white kid, the drug mule who got caught with the drugs at the airport? I'm sure that dude flipped. Did everybody else flip on Diddy already? Are more arrests coming? The only thing that I know for sure is that we are going to be getting a lot more of this information within the coming days as this whole thing unfolds and unravels, and I'm going to be bringing it to you as soon as we get that. So thanks for riding out with me today. Stay tuned, and until the next one love, baby. Be good or be good at it.